We have an absolutely insane war happening right now, driven at least in some part by a competition over fossil energy. We got to get the off that program right now.
We are live with Mark Frohnmayer. Guess who's back? Back again.
Welcome and congratulations on an awesome event. I can tell you guys worked really hard on that, and I can see how proud you were while you were on stage.
It was phenomenal. I've had the pleasure to work with a great number of really awesome teams over my career, but never have I ever seen a team that big just row hard for the awesome, all in the same direction, all at the same time, and have everything just boom, 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 just hit. It was lovely. And you know, I told them afterwards, you know, you guys gave me the opportunity to give the best speech I've ever given in my life, I think. And it was because like it wouldn't have been anywhere near as good if it hadn't have been all the amazing things that everybody just really poured their passion into to get done and get across at least the point where we're willing to start showing it to the public. So it was a good day.
How big is Arcimoto now? 250
strong, wearing the brand. And then when I think of Arcimoto, it is a huge and growing family of companies and people. And you know, we work the people who actually are employed by the venture itself. That's, you know, 250. That's actually the largest company I've ever worked for outside of a couple of internships in college. And then we also work with some of the most brilliant engineering and design companies in the world on pieces of our products and next generation products that we share a real commitment with to make a big difference in terms of mobility. So work is fun right now. We're having a lot of fun. We're moving faster than we've ever moved before. And I'm just super excited about what's next.
Before we go on, in the next example in the ongoing series of Mark proving that not all forward-looking statements are accurate, I wanted to share my screen to show you this new machine that came out. I don't know if you heard about it. This Mean Lean machine.
Ooh, that looks cool.
I saw the launch event, and I have decided that I'm going to agree to the terms and conditions, and I'm going to place an order.
I love it.
There it is. Thank you for your pre-order. I was the guy that said, you know, I could invest in the company, but maybe I wouldn't get a product. You made a product that got me. I'm really intrigued. Now I just want to know, what did I just buy?
Well, and that's what I love is how many people have now pre-ordered, and I can't share that, but I've been.
We're about to ask how many.
I actually get little dings each time, so it's but it's been awesome to see how many people are willing to pre-order it without even knowing what the actual final product looks like, costs, capable of, but even just based on what we've shown, which is some really cool stuff. I mean, it's even the V3 prototype of the Mean Lean machine is just an amazing ride. And I think actually tomorrow there's a longer introductory video that's going to drop that interviews Leonardo, who is the guy in that video. He's also one of the designers on the Mean Lean machine, and just talking about what really separates this from at least any other mobility device we've ever seen.
What got me was the tech. It's just this really cool tech, and it's an interesting way of addressing mobility, but just a little more info would be great.
Yeah, well, and the tech side of it is to me probably the coolest part. Well, the product is amazingly cool. It's one of those things where it sort of once it became clear what it should be, it was like, okay, that's the bicycle I've been questing for my whole life, right? And finally sort of figured out what was the right recipe for it. It starts with the technology that we acquired and the people we acquired when we bought Tilting Motorworks and brought them into Arcimoto. Just really nailed the leaning three-wheeled vehicle architecture in a way that nobody else on the planet has done. And then we layered on top of that all of the expertise that we have developed over more than a decade of developing electric vehicles to deliver an e-bike class product that is just I don't really see it as we're not trying to go and compete with e-bikes. What we're trying to do is provide another route for people to get out of cars, right? And to say, well, I would ride an e-bike, but I don't want to slide out. I don't want to fall off. I want to have a safer experience on the road. I want to have a more maneuverable experience on the road. I don't want to get grease on my leg from a chain. I don't want to have to take a wheel off if I get a flat tire. The things that are kind of these little barriers that stack up to, I'm going to take my car to get coffee. And so what the Mean Lean Machine is, I think, going to do ultimately is it is going to provide such a joyful ride experience and take away enough of those objections to the e-bike class that the hope is that expands into a much wider market than people who are willing to ride a bicycle today.
You have 200 miles, it says on the website. Is that with the pedaling, or is that just 200 miles with the battery?
We're aiming for, and those are all listed as targets. Mm-hmm. So to be clear, targets, we are shooting for a vehicle that can go 200 miles with 2 auxiliary batteries. And of course, you'll be pedaling it. So it's a pedal assist. Mm-hmm. But most of the work is being done by the battery.
So to get the 200 miles, though, that you're aiming for, you do need to pedal. I'm just making sure. It's not just like you can hit the handle.
And it would have a couple of extra auxiliary modules with it.
Is it safe to assume that the Platform 2 will have as many variants as the Platform 1? So you have the FUV, the Deliberator.
Ultimately, Platform 2 is just the constituent technologies. It's the wheel. Arcimoto, I was like, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just use stuff that's out there. But this time we actually did reinvent the wheel. We made our own bespoke wheel simply because there was nothing else out there that would do what we needed to do with the leaning tech. But the combination of that wheel and then the micro future drive, which is the combination of electronics and battery, those components in themselves are things we intend to sell out into the world, right? So that anyone, it's sort of like if the Apple II was a bicycle for the mind, then micro future drive is an Apple II for the bicycle, right? It's like creating a real platform for micromobility so that people who make vehicles don't have to, cobble together a bunch of different things with a bunch of different wire harnesses. It's just like it's one brick with a battery, multiple inverters, lots of different other cool stuff that we're going to talk about soon. Mm-hmm. That enables a wide range of small form electric vehicles.
How are you supposed to scale these 2 different lines? How is this being structured? How is it being worked out? If you could give us any details on that.
The smaller it gets, the easier it is to scale it, right? The big things take a ton of space and a ton of capital to scale up production. The smaller you make it, the less space you need to assemble it at high volume.
How much does the Platform 2 weigh?
The target is 80 pounds.
Oh.
The requirement is 100 pounds for the Mean Lean Machine. But Platform 2 doesn't, because Platform 2, again, is a set of technologies more than it is one particular product. So the Platform 1 is a chassis with integrated battery, with suspension, with electronics and all that lots of different hats can sit on. That's Platform 1. Platform 2 is a brick and wheels that together are the things that you need to make super kick-ass micromobility products.
Well, I still want him to finish the scaling question because it is important, because everybody, even on our Discord, is talking about you're trying to scale this one thing. How are you actually going to do this? How many people are being devoted to that?
The cool thing about the Mean Lean Machine and Platform 2 is it's been done. The bulk of it's been done out of house, and the sort of the portion of the budget that has been pretty small compared to Platform 1.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So when you think about integrated electronics and stuff like that, there are a large number of very capable contract manufacturers that can build those types of devices, sort of right in their wheelhouse. And the ultimate aim of, and I imagine we'll get into the Arcimoto Platform Initiative at some point, but the goal here is to design, and I've talked about this now for about a year, but what we're designing is the pattern for mass production, replicable mass production. So we are aiming to create a pattern that we can then license, joint venture, spin up our own, whatever it is, but it's the copy paste approach. And that's going to be for both platform 1X and for platform 2.
Oh, so you're actually saying that you won't be the only manufacturer of both platforms? Like you will actually outsource some of this to somebody else who wants to build it?
One, we are way behind the 8 ball on the climate. Two, we have an absolutely insane war happening right now, driven at least in some part by a competition over fossil energy. We got to get the off that program right now. And in order to do that fast, it means it's not about us going and digging new dirt overseas. It's about saying, oh, you've got a big building, you've got a bunch of cash, you want to build really cool products? Awesome. We got a plan.
I agree with you 100%. And by the way, my background's Russian. I don't know if you know that.
I went to a Russian Orthodox church service in my neighborhood for the first time in my life today, just to try and get an understanding of what's going on. This is peace in the world and addressing climate change are inextricably linked.
Other question I did have about the mean lean machine is, one, is that the final name? And two, what is the speed capped at?
There's been much wailing and gnashing of teeth around the name. It has been called the mean lean machine since we started working on it. It's an homage to the General Motors lean machine from way back in the day. It is the ultimate MLM, right?
Yes.
Our customers are going to sell a lot of these products. They'll get some high score points for it.
So you're keeping the name?
We'll run with it for a while.
Okay, because we did have someone in our Discord who said Cybertrike.
They said, yeah. One of the guys was like,
so that was one that, and Leo, who is one of the designers, he's like, it's the Cybertrike, man. I'm like, it is, right? But it is a Cybertrike in the sense that the Cybertruck was sort of an homage to cyber. But I think the fact that that Tesla has sort of claimed that name, it's a little too close. I prefer to be to differentiate a little bit. I think of it as aiming for the Architrike, which is the archetype trike from which many shall be made.
By the way, Tesla's stealing it from cyberpunk type stuff, so it's not like it's original for them. If you wanted to use it, you are allowed to use it, Mark.
Now that we've got permission, I will. Right. I'll run it back up the flagpole.
Oh, and the Discord loved that name, just so you know. The second question was, is it capped? I think you had a discussion with Warren Redlich.
Different jurisdictions have different caps on speeds of pedal assist electric bikes. There's a class 2 e-bike, which can go 20 miles an hour. The class 3, which can go up to 28 with pedal assist. Europe has different numbers, but it's all a software setting. So if you want to get, I imagine we'll have one that is, sort of not for road use, that removes a cap or whatever, or people can go in. And again, we're thinking of platform 2 as being, it's a programmable brick, right? So it's something you're going to be able to, it's a platform. It's like a computer with batteries for driving things.
This is a TEDx talk in Portland back in 2012.
Imagine a fleet of ultra-efficient electric self-driving vehicles cruising around the city, available at the touch of a button on your phone. You could be too young, you could be too old, you could be too drunk to drive, no problem. You could have a critical text message, Facebook status update, or tweet that absolutely must go out right now in the middle of rush hour traffic. No problem. It will be a personal rapid transportation system that uses the infrastructure that we already have, which means it can be adopted incrementally, at low cost, and as it proves out on the road, really cool stuff starts to happen. These autonomous vehicles can communicate with each other, which means that in a traffic jam situation, rather than getting that kind of accordion effect as vehicles catch up and accelerate, these vehicles will accelerate and brake together, making much better use of our existing asphalt assets. It'll also make our trains better. So existing mass transit becomes much better as soon as you have a last mile solution. Imagine, vehicle pulls up at your house, drops you off just as the train is getting there. On the other side, vehicle with your name on it takes you to your actual destination. And bicycling becomes much better because, after all, the biggest barrier to adoption of the bicycle is that you've got to share the road with a distracted texting driver piloting a multi-ton vehicle right next to you.
You were talking about the Mean Lean Machine right there.
I had a call with Dave Lee some months back, and he's like, "Oh, autonomous. So you think autonomous is? When did you jump on that bandwagon?" I was like, "Bro,
I made the wagon."
I started arguing about that with Jeff Tennell in Garage Games in 2002 or something. You know, what is going to be the future of transport?
I think he just joined our Discord.
He just joined our Discord, by the way.
He just joined our Discord, and he's great.
What up,
the back
Jeff?
and forth. He blew my mind.
He's watching.
Yeah, Jeff is. He was like, everyone just needs to get a Geo Metro, 40 miles a gallon. We'll be fine. I'm like, no, bro, it's gonna be self-driving electric pods, and he's like 50 years away, you know. So we had a lot of good discussions when we were making video games. By the way, also that did have my favorite sports quote in it. The Stacey King, when he said, "I'll always remember this as the night that Michael Jordan and I combined to score 70 points in Jordan's 69-point career high against the Cavs." So it's like that was my pitch to Google. I'm like, look, you guys are actually doing the hard part, which is the self-driving thing. We're just making really awesome platforms. It turns out, actually, getting the right platform is itself a very difficult challenge, but I think we've done our part.
Have you succeeded in a majority of this mission? Because it seems like you're very close.
We see the finish line, or we're finish line's almost in sight. We've been for a 14 plus years running. We see all of these things converging in the very near time horizon. The next several years, as we start to ramp up units, as we get more adoption of the base platform for lots of different autonomous use cases, and then the launch of the true micromobility thing. I've always seen Arcimoto as mining the gap between the bike and the car, and I think we've now got just a bunch of really sweet plays in that space that are going after this problem space.
Here's the first one by a constraint. There have been a number of announced tests with government agencies and businesses, Orlando, Wahlburgers, and Sanitas, but no order, amount, or details about the pilot program ends, or when it ends, I guess.
Well, so the Wahlburger, that was actually a vehicle purchase, and we will have more to share on those other cities at some point, but nothing that is public today is anything that I'm going to share today.
But these programs are ongoing.
Yeah, and the pilots have been awesome in terms of the Orlando pilot, that was where they said, what would be really useful would be a flatbed for us. We think a flatbed version of this would be awesome. Like, okay, we'll make a flatbed. Then we made a super awesome flatbed, and we're now piloting that out and saying, okay, how do we really dial this in? And same, it's like the flexibility of the platform means that fleets of a lot of different kinds are going to be able to really get a dialed in bespoke vehicle for their need. The real trouble for us is just that up until now, we have been building all the variants in our R&D shop kind of one at a time. And this is one of the things I talked about at Ramp It Up, was that we now have the space to actually build the full product family on the same production line in the same production facility, which means that we're going to be able to get a lot more of those units out, because we have a relatively quite small number of rapid responders, flatbeds, and deliverators versus fun utility vehicles.
I had a question about the MLM. Even on the Discord, we talked a little bit about comparing it to Peloton. A Peloton's $2,000 and it doesn't go anywhere. And like you said, you're burning oil to burn fat. That's a great line. It really sticks.
It's always blown my mind that stationary exercise bikes require 110 power to operate. Are you kidding me? You're an
inverter. You're
outputting power into this machine, and so that's useful. Not only are those machines just blowing off all of the useful energy that you are outputting, they're actually requiring the grid to supply power for that experience. And so, that was one of the things early on in the development of the Mean Lean Machine, as we sort of started to think about, okay, how does the drivetrain of this thing work? What are the really cool things we can do there? And that one was just sort of like, well, that's obvious. If we got a pedal generator, you should be able to use it stationary and recharge the vehicle while it's sitting still.
How much of a recharge do we get by pedaling for an hour?
You can Google it. The average human outputs pedaling. I want to say something like a normal good exercise pedaling is like 150 watts, but I'd have to double check that. So, you can, if you pedal for an hour, you can power a very bright incandescent light bulb for that whole hour as you're pedaling. And so there's a lot of work being done all over the place to make more efficient use of electricity. And so this is going to be one of those things where I don't think it's not, you're probably not going to power all your home appliances on it, but if you're on a camping trip or something like that, and you want to run the blender at camp, that'd be cool.
My question is two things. Number one, is there going to be a way for me to harness that power externally? The second thing is, and it leads to the API that you mentioned, you get into fitness here. Can the MLM generate subscription-based revenue like a Peloton?
I think we will explore subscription programs for a number of things as we go on. And we've been talking about subscriptions, sort of like vehicle access subscriptions for shared fleets.
Interesting.
Whether we can, sort of get somebody wants to pay $10 a month for additional features and exclusive content and fun community features. I think those are options down the road. There is certainly nothing in this that would preclude that. And but we're right now, I would say we're really focused on foundational tech and approaches. As I look at Arcimoto, I think as we go down the road, there are going to be lots and lots of ways to just sort of crank up additional revenue streams, right? Whether it's subscriptions for online features or fleet management components or shared fleet components or really good swag. Lot of ways to, sort of juice up our margins beyond the basic stuff. But right now, we've got to stay very focused on the foundational components to building the full business. I think Arcimoto has taken a different approach than what I've seen other vehicle companies do. We build from the inside out, whereas cars are typically built from the outside in. The designer makes the perfect lines on the sketchboard and then gives it a name and then market tests the name and then spends a lot of money on sketches about what this thing's going to be, and then they're like, oh, this is the really sexy sketch of what that car is going to be, and then they're like, how the heck are we going to put all the stuff inside that does that thing? And then it becomes a really complex engineering challenge to fit all the stuff into the idea. Whereas what we've done and what we did with Platform 1, Platform 1X, and now with Platform 2 is really focus on the core experience. The guts of the experience, get that right, and then build all the shells of the product and of the business around it. So, we have not been a hype-based company. We've been very focused on product development. Now we're adding additional focus on, let's make sure that we've got the market touch points to actually get people into the rides and that we can do that efficiently. Because we're aiming for a level of scale that's going to require a robust sales approach to go alongside. A year ago, we had literally one guy doing sales.
What is the sales team? How big has it grown? Can you talk about that?
Well, we had so Dilip Sundaram, who is our chief international business officer. He came in and the main purpose was, okay, let's start really building the international connections and story to take production into other markets and distribution and sales into other markets. But he sort of rapidly realized, like, guys, we actually need an internal sales team that is going after even all the domestic opportunities. We just added a domestic sales chief who's awesome. Comes to us from another company in the space, and he's going to be sort of managing that domestic sales team. Dilip is managing the global sales team, and we've got a much more structured approach. I think what's particularly important on the fleet side for us is just making sure that we have alignment with other ecosystem players to make it very easy for fleets to have turnkey adoption of the Arcimoto, and that's fleet management, fleet leasing, repairs in every market, really understanding the customer needs for products that make sense. And so that's now we're starting to hit the throttle hard on all of those fronts, which is really cool to me.
Are you aiming now more for the commercial fleet market in terms of your push and advertising and the sales, as opposed to people like me who pre-ordered an FUV? They're sort of like a secondary concern as opposed to the fleet.
In the domestic space, it's three pillars. It's consumer, which is online plus experience demo rental in beachhead markets. It's commercial fleets, primarily focused on delivery and some on campus, like the flatbed, and then government, which is where we're super excited about the smoke jumper initiative. That is the next step in the rapid responder program, and we see an absolutely giant opportunity in helping government fleets meet their carbon emissions goals, and it runs across everything from a city inspector to a paramedic who wants to be first on the scene. Those are all jobs that governments are trying to figure out how to do much more efficiently, and we think we've got some very good solutions for that. All of the products that we're building actually slot into all of those worlds. So the Mean Lean Machine and Platform 2 has a place in the consumer world. It also has a place in the fleet world, because you can see in places that are dense metro areas, New York is a good example, just the amount of delivery that happens on electric bikes. We think the Mean Lean Machine is going to be a fantastic product for those types of uses, where even the deliverator would be too big for certain areas of the city.
Are those siloed? Do you have individual teams working on, say, pushing the deliverator, pushing the...
No, the silos are domestic and global.
Got it. Okay.
Those are the two silos.
Considering, Vitaly lives on the East Coast, and I also have lived in New York. Talk to me a little bit about the security of those vehicles in areas or in bigger cities where that's a concern.
You do have a lightweight thing. So there's 5 very strong guys can go and lift up your FUV and put it in a truck. Right. The nice thing is the onboard compute's got inertial measurement. It's got phone home. So making sure that you've got, you hit the that it, if somebody moves it or jostles it or whatever, we want to make sure that you can get notified. And then, of course, for the Mean Lean Machine, you'll be able to lock it up to a bike rack.
What stage is the app development on? We're going to talk about it later, but might as well bring it up now. Are we close to an iOS and Android app?
As I said in the presentation, we're expecting that the first version of the app is going to be concurrent with the release of torque vectoring, aiming for fall. So we'll have more to share on that front. It's definitely a priority item for us, but we've got lots of dueling priority items. So, but that one is I think going to see serious movement in the next 6 months. Is
that going to be for both systems, iOS and Android at the same time?
Yeah. We haven't figured out if we're going to launch one prior to the other. But expect that they will be, if not at the same time, close.
You said more than once in the event, we're going to have 50,000 vehicles by 2025. I just wanted to clarify that's where you think we could ramp up to?
So we are targeting a production rate of 50,000 per year by 25. That's when we're aiming to have that factory just churning out units, but that's that factory.
Right.
So Arcimoto as a whole, if we achieve our goals in terms of expansion, we'll have multiple factories at that point building units.
2025 on the same scale as what you currently have.
They'll all each one will lag, right? The first one will go fastest, and then the second one will follow suit. But I expect that the boot up time will compress for the more factories that we do. I mean, you can see this with Tesla. They get it up and running faster the more that they do.
Right. Can you give us any indication of where these next factories might show up and a time frame for them?
I can in the future.
There's been a lot of confusion, at least in the chat on our Discord.
Cumulative production deployment. So that's the total number of vehicles Arcimoto has put into the world as of the end of each of those years.
So here we have 2021. It looks like
I think we cracked over 500.
You mentioned in your talk that you're going to 3x this year. Now, the question in our Discord was, is it 3x from the 500 or is it 3x from...
In more concrete terms, we want to dip into 4 digits.
I was just going to say, you said you want to break 4 digits.
You heard it here first, guys. That's right.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Fantastic.
Then in 2023, we want to 7x that.
Can you give us a breakdown of how many of those you see direct sales? How many of those you see going into fleet programs?
I think,
and hold on, when is Vitaly getting his FUV? I want that answered in this.
Are you in New York?
I'm in New York. New Jersey. I'm sorry, New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay. Well, you might have noticed New York just changed their, just added an autocycle class of vehicles that Arcimoto falls in. So you don't need a motorcycle license or helmet to drive in New York City or New York State now, which is awesome. So New York is going to be sort of our fourth beachhead market once we open it, which will be that northeast quadrant. So as far as the breakdown between sales of individual units, sales of fleet units, and then fleet demo units, the big chunk this year, we're aiming to get into our demo rental program. We want to get demo rentals in key destinations all throughout our first three beachheads, right? Like, so that wherever you go on the west coast of Florida or in Southern California, that makes sense as a demo rental area, that you've got a place you can go and rent one for a day and check it out. So Hawaii, Southern California, Florida, that is going to consume, we think, a lot of this year's production. But we're also really spinning up our fleet program in the sense of we want to get more and more and more fleets to have legit trials of Deliverator, flatbed, and rapid responder. So that'll be another big piece of it. And then for people who say, I got to get mine right now, and I don't want to wait for Platform 1X, and I don't want to wait for price breaks or tax credits, I need this now. We want to make sure we prioritize them as well.
Okay, so there is a possibility that I can't get it sooner.
You're a pre-order customer.
Yes.
Once we open up New York, then you can put in your actual reservation and we will build you a vehicle.
Section 1, the bill authorizes the operation of autocycles with either a Class D driver's license or Class M motorcyclist license. Autocycles are described as a three-wheeled motor vehicle having a steering wheel and a seating that does not require the operator to straddle or sit astride. So basically, do you need a steering wheel or no? Is this
no? There was an amendment that passed with this. It was like a signing amendment. I'm not sure exactly what the legal process there is, but it went from steering wheel to steering mechanism. They just changed that one word in order to include Arcimoto.
Do you have to go to every state and sort of lobby this kind of stuff?
Not everyone. I think now more than half of the states have actually allow the Arcimoto as is. And then almost every state has some kind of an autocycle provision. What we found is that the legislatures that we're talking to see it as we see it, which is that it's a no-brainer that you should be able to pilot an Arcimoto without having to learn how to lean a motorcycle or deal with a gas clutch or all the stuff that you've got to learn in order to get your motorcycle endorsement. And that particularly since states have now many states have very aggressive carbon reduction goals, making it easier for people who live in those states to be able to make those choices is in everybody's best interest.
New car manufacturers still have, I believe, a tax credit for under 200,000 vehicles, right?
Yep.
So how does this apply to this autocycle thing?
It doesn't presently. There's a big rework of the tax provisions that is in Congress at the moment that does include 2- and 3-wheeled motorcycles as part of it, and we will see when and if that moves. I think that would be again, if the Congress can move as fast as some of the states do, that would be great. We've got a big problem to solve, and that I think that will help. But and I believe there's an e-bike credit in there as well that would also apply to the Mean Lean Machine if that passes. So you get up to $900 off the MLM, which could be a benefit as well. But if you imagine a 30% tax credit off the FUV,
that's a substantial number.
It's a big mover. So and from my perspective, I look at it, I go, okay, for this year, is that a requirement? No. For next year, it'd be good. For 2024. It'd be fantastic, right? So we're going to continue to press on that level. And I think as time goes on, we're going to continue to see signs in the outside world that we got to get our together and solve this big problem right now. And that's one piece of it.
I do have a question. This is about you.
I swore again. Sorry, guys.
It's actually,
I get fired up on that topic.
I actually think it underscores the importance of what you're saying and like how much you believe it. So I think it's fine. I just have a question on you as a CEO, sort of shifting gears. Elon Musk said that the two things that occupy the most brain space of his is Tesla FSD and the Falcon engines. What are the things that occupy the most brain space in your head?
I would say the big ones have been Platform 1X, the new battery, and Mean Lean Machine. But then it's also the other really big one is team growth and leadership, and building a super kick-ass organization that can tackle these problems. Because we really started focusing on that last year as we were growing, bringing lots of new people on board, and then trying to make sure that we are communicating what we need to communicate with each other, and we've got the right patterns of communication and organization to win. And that's one of those things where if you do that right, everything just goes much faster. People are way happier. They're working on creative projects that are just really ringing the bell. And so I am definitely a product development guy. I've been, from being a deep engine programmer to game designer to vehicle designer. So I spend a lot of my cycles on the actual products and design and engineering. But this, as the CEO, it's that element of making sure the team is structured right, that the design of the team and the design of how we work together is critically important as we scale the venture.
Can you just give us 30 seconds on why Platform 1X was the number one thing? And in batteries, I'm really curious about that. We've talked a little bit about the MLM.
Platform 1X is what unlocks scale. So a lot of our investors have chimed in saying, you got to show me more production output. You got to show me more production output. I'm like, no. I mean, yes, what we reiterated over and over, this is beginning of last year and before, is there is going to be a relatively flat growth curve in production output with a lot of chop until we get the ramp online and we're really building what we're going to build in there. And once that Platform 1X is what unlocks that piece. So it's all of the refinements that we've learned in order to drive up scale and reduce cost of the base platform. Once that's on the road, that's when we want to just really hit the rocket ship.
What is the cost reduction, if you can tell us, between the current platform and the Platform 1X?
What I can tell you is that between batteries, electronics, and motors, motors, and all of the stuff that holds all that together, that comprises about 60% of the cost. And so that's why focusing on those things is so critical. Also, that's the foundation that all of every product that we presently build sits on. So if you reduce cost of that one architecture, then you're reducing our cost of every product in our product family.
Why is the battery platform taking so much of your brain space? And what are you trying to do? Like, what exactly does that mean?
There are a few things. One is that we presently build with a pouch format cell, a really fantastic cell from a company called Ferrosis. But when you're building with pouch cells, they are harder to package. And less flexible to package than cylindrical cells. We've also seen that there's just a lot of very cool development happening in the cylindrical cell world, driven by Tesla. So they're the innovations on the 4680 cell format, and then really driving up the world volume for 2170 cell format that we wanted to have. We discovered, obviously, during the pandemic that we need to be dual sourced on battery cells. We have to have supply chain redundancy as a company, and we want to be able to source, particularly as we go into new markets that have different local suppliers. We want to make sure that we have the capability to use cylindrical format cells. So that's been one of the drivers. And then also building the Mean Lean Machine and having a different volume of space to package in. Again, we wanted to make sure that was sort of one of the other drivers of that making a super badass cylindrical cell battery pack architecture. And also, I've been doing that. The first time I went to Detroit was actually for a battery show, and they put me on stage, and at that point, I had absolutely no real idea about what was going on inside of the battery, and it was I sort of did it for the free ticket, and it ended up being a horrible show. I want the magic battery, right? Like I want something that is very flexible, that doesn't require a ton of tooling for each bespoke form factor of battery, and obviously something that is very safe, very high energy density, and we just haven't seen that product be offered into the market, and that was one of the reasons why we charted down that course. And I want to I'll probably stop here and just say wait until we really reveal what we've got going on there, but it's a new approach to cylindrical cell packing that we're shooting for the highest volumetric energy density, thermally safest, most flexible, lowest cost packing architecture for CAN cells that will work for everything from an MLM to a bus.
Does the end consumer get more range out of this, or there'll be no difference for them?
What it will do is it'll give ultimately range optionality. So when we first started going after what was then the SRK, when we first announced that, we wanted to have a low range, low cost version, wanted to have a higher range, high cost version. And the packing architecture we have now is just sort of like it's a one size fits all. And the nice thing about that, what we're doing with the cans is that it's going to let us do multiple variants of the battery, we think, that will let us hit a very low base model price and also give people who really want more range.
Structural battery and or swappable batteries?
Good question,
yeah. It's still a battery inside of the backbone. It's not actually the structure of the backbone. I went back and forth on that with the team early on in this iteration. It is a very structural brick in the sense that it's potted. So all the cells the cells live in, they're encased and encapsulated in a polymer that basically bricks it all together, and protects the cells. I mean, we found early on that encapsulation of the cells is critical. You really don't want moisture getting into your battery pack, because there's one of the guys we work with is Luke Workman from Electric Goddess. Absolutely, those guys are absolutely brilliant battery and chemical engineers. And if you guys ever want to do a discussion about battery recycling or battery, what the sort of the secret sauce inside your electric vehicles, I would really recommend having them on your program. But he was the one who turned us on to the fact that if you don't, the battery is heating up and cooling down in an electric vehicle, and that expansion and contraction basically means the battery's breathing, right? And so even if you have an IP67 rated encasement for it, you'll still pull that contraction will pull water vapor into the pack. And if that water vapor gets into the cells, then salt bridges can form, and that will short and start fires, and very bad. Very bad. So, but by encasing it in the right material, and those guys have just done a fantastic amount of research on what is the right material, that's to prevent that problem from happening over time.
So currently it's 1,300 pounds for the current FUV, correct?
Yep.
I assume if you're making the platform way smaller and all that metal is now reduced to the Platform 1X, you've got to be saving, I don't know, 100, 200 pounds?
We want to get the threshold of micromobility, and it's a totally arbitrary one, is 1,100 pounds. And so the micromobility world considers Arcimoto to be the FUV to be a micro heavy, kind of the big kid. We want to get the FUV down into the true, that sort of under that threshold. And then of course the mean lean machine is real micromobility.
If you're knocking off 200 pounds, I assume then what you're doing with the batteries is you're putting less batteries in for the same range because you have more energy density.
Well, the goal is to always just fill that battery box with as much juice as we can. And if you pick a lower range version, we'll actually just have extra ballast in there. We don't want to have different vehicle dynamics based on the range of the vehicle you've selected. But that part of it, we don't want to make any lighter. That's the part you actually want to have be heavy.
Let's discuss this for a second. Everybody is really happy to see.
Did you put wings on the?
Well, the next question is when Windows. That's the next question.
Well, and
never
we actually
happy, Mark.
Invest in good outerwear is always a good choice, right? So a nice jacket goes a long way. But we do have actually we did at Ramp It Up have multiple vehicles with full enclosure as prototypes. And that is absolutely something we are working on and going to have as a product option as we go forward, once we get it to the point where we really love it. But we just don't want to have, the thing I like about the half doors is the team got them to a state where they're really nice. And we want to make sure that when we deploy full side doors that they meet that threshold of quality and experience, so it doesn't feel tacked on or cheap. And that's a non-trivial undertaking, particularly as we designed the frame for the FUV. So some of the things as we look further down the road, and this is particularly true of what we call the mass market consumer vehicle, is the phase 2 of the ramp plan. That when you use more precise methods for production of components, things like stampings or hydroforming, it becomes much easier to have a very precise surface that you're sealing against. But I think we will have a solution that works with the type of frames that we have now. It's just going to take us a little bit to really dial it in.
I think some people on the Discord, by the way, said it's not even that they want perfect windows; they just want whatever covering it is.
Even a zipper, and I mentioned that I had a Wrangler.
Anything.
I had the zipper; it was fine, but you do need something to.
Well, we've got that. We had zipper window uppers on display outside Ramp It Up a couple weeks ago. So that is one of the options that we are looking at.
One of the things you said on the 222 event that piqued my interest, some former Tesla employees actually helped in the design of the drivetrain of the MLM.
There's and they're in kind of still a pretty stealthy mode at the moment, but we met them at the Micromobility Conference last fall. And they had developed a very cool drivetrain add-on for a normal bike to turn it into an e-bike. And we looked at it and said, you know what, that would actually package perfectly as a pedal gen for the mean lean machine. And started working with them. They actually helped not just on the pedal generator, but on the design of the wheel. Really, really sharp guys who just, Tesla has hired some of the world's most brilliant engineers, and not all of them want to make cars. So it's good to see some of those folks start to look at more right-sized footprints, and we're super stoked to work with them.
I got a question about Sandy. Are you guys still actively daily somehow working on the factory to make it, or Sandy's already done his job and you're just executing it?
No. There is particularly for phase 2, there's a ton of work left to do. And those guys, they are a brilliant engineering team, and they're a team of teams, right? Munro and Associates. They've got a number of different companies that they work with that have been very helpful on this program already. But to really to build in the automotive way, that's their bread and butter. And so we're keeping them joined at the hip for as long as they want to run with us.
How far along is the Robo valet concept that we discussed back in the day?
So Faction is our first adopter of the API, the Arcimoto Platform Initiative. They are building their solutions on top of the vehicle platform that we've built, which has been a fantastic collaboration. Ein and his team have deep experience in autonomous vehicles. They started in the trucking world. Now they're doing more micro logistics delivery focus, but they just have a really practical approach in terms of let's get, actually utilize autonomous, and they really clarify this is driverless. So it partly uses autonomy, partly uses human supervision in order to operate. And it is, with what they are planning to do with delivery, you could envision a very quick jump to a Robo valet in particular circumstances. So let's say you've got a guest at a hotel that wants to demo an Arcimoto. Rather than going to the demo rental center, they summon one. And if there is in the case of what they're demoing now, they run on fixed routes, right? So the Robo taxi is any road, anywhere, any condition, full speed, slow speed, carrying humans. The initial application of this tech is fixed routes, and they're looking at the B2B, right? It's I want to take the cake from the baker to the shop, or I want to take this box from this business to this business, where that happens every day, and they're just schlepping stuff in between known points. And that's so what I like is that's a very practical application, and it has direct relevance to what we want to do with Robo Valet, which, and I talked about that initially, is that on the road to the Robo Valet that can show up at your house, there are, we think, shippable intermediaries that also help cut the cost of the vehicle sharing models. And that I think will come sooner than the 2024, 2025 target for the sort of full-on Robo Valet.
Are we going to see like an example that possibly in the next earnings or the following earnings, a pilot program happening, something like that?
Well, Faction has said they want to pilot it, their delivery stuff this year, and so I think I'll be looking for updates on that as we move forward. But yeah, we want to do something meaningful. I think last year we said we wanted to do our first real meaningful pilot deployment in 23. I think it's possible that could happen sooner.
What other interests have you had in terms of becoming API partners with the new initiative?
Almost every autonomous technology company we talk to recognizes the difficulty of getting a platform on-road tested in the market, plus manufacturing of that platform and having the right platform for their particular tech. So we haven't announced anything, but I would say the temperature out there, and this is both in terms of research institutions as well as other companies that are building the sensor and software stacks, where they go, actually, building the vehicle is tough. Getting a road legal vehicle and the manufacturing operation behind it is a big lift. And so if you are like, well, we are very smart camera and software and neural net guys, why don't we just put our stuff on top of either platform 1 or platform 2?
Are you providing these vehicles for free to Faction, or they have to buy the vehicles, or some sort of split has happening? We haven't talked about the nature of that business deal, but ultimately we want to make money off the platforms that we build. People, like, when they're just like, oh, what's the market for this? Like, do you know how big the vehicle market is? And also, we're aiming for 80% of that market. Anyway, 80% niche. Well, I like that.
It's the 80% niche, right? It's when you move to the world where you've got driverless vehicles that are available when you need them. How many times do you actually need an SUV? Not very many times.
Very rarely.
Once a month maybe, or once every few months.
Yeah.
How many times do you need a vehicle that's super fun, that gets you and one other person and a small amount of stuff around town? That's almost all the trips. Mm-hmm. So that's the 80% niche.
You mentioned the phase 2 vehicle with Sandy Munro. Can you explain or give a little more context as to what that would be and a potential time frame?
I didn't even show a screenshot. 25 is the target for that. So
okay.
we'll have much more to talk about on that, but that's just,
is it a product, or is it like is it a product, or is it some new functionality with the current?
It's a combination of a change in some materials. Mm-hmm. So like really looking at, once we're ready to go to print on, like, the geometry is totally locked. We're like, okay, we're going to stamp that. We're going to cast that. We're going to hydroform that. We're going to do that. Like, that a piece of that is a big investment in tooling, and then the other piece of it is a big investment in automation of assembly, and those two will go hand in hand. But the first key is Platform 1X, because that's the initial unlocker of scale, and actually that one alone can unlock giant scale, right? I mean, you look at what Polaris is building in terms of the side-by-side world. They're using a lot of the same approaches that we use in terms of laser cut steel and welding robots and so on at hundreds of thousands of vehicles a year.
This is for Carlos because he thinks you should race these bad boys.
You gotta start racing these things, Mark.
This three-wheeler is easily the most fun electric vehicle we've tested, so let's see how it does around the track. And we're off. The Arcimoto FUV sports twin electric motors on the front axle, one for each wheel, that put out a combined 77 horsepower. That might not sound like a lot, but they don't have a lot of weight to pull. The FUV weighs in at only 1,300 pounds. Into the first corner, a long, sweeping left-hander named Poe, the fun utility vehicle is remarkably stable. Onto the brakes into turn 2, hugging the inside through the exit.
Dude, these guys, I haven't seen this yet. This is fantastic.
So we'll put a link, but my point is that obviously people are already thinking about racing them in some form. So when are you going to actually do some event to get all this publicity and make all of us really happy, Mark? When are you going to do this?
All right. I'll run this by the Marketron and see what the events team is up for. For me personally, burning rubber has not really been the point of the exercise. I like that the FUV is 0 to fun immediately. Like it makes your low speed trips really, really entertaining. Going very fast is not really the point of the product, but it is a well-engineered machine. I would say probably, to me, the one that would be really fun to put on the track would be the Roadster. Because that actually lets you use your own body. I mean, you can really put your body where you want in the gravity line, and the thing is it's just a brick on the road. I mean, it's a brick horse.
We've been joking that you should get on a Roadster and race the CEO of Polaris.
I would prefer the scavenger hunt around, maybe more like a crazy taxi mission to pick up groceries and flowers and see if you can get back to the house fast.
Yeah, did you read this one? Are you trying to acquire? I think we talked about fleet orders, right?
What we're building now is the fleet ecosystem to make it very easy for fleets that want to adopt better solutions to make it just turnkey, and I think that will naturally lead to fleet adoption. So we'll have more to talk about on that topic.
Have you heard of this company, Gogoro, with the swappable green little battery packs?
I have.
Is that something that can happen? Because as you do this Robo valet thing, it'd be really cool if you can just drive up, pull out, get a new thing.
Another vehicle that we plan to have swappable external modules on as well is that Mean Lean machine.
So this is a serious question, Mark. When do you plan to add more production shifts beyond the 2 10-hour shifts that are Monday through Thursday? I don't know is this true? I don't even know if this is correct.
We're presently one shift. We're going to 2 shifts this year. We've had job postings up about it. And then I would say once, again, the big steps up in scale, although a 3X is good, but I think as we look into 2023 and beyond, we will aim to have sort of like continuous operation at the factory.
Even on Sundays, just 24/7?
I'll leave that to Terry to map out the final details, but we definitely want to utilize the space that we've got.
Are you looking into adding driving modes so that more experienced riders could have a faster acceleration curve?
Yes.
Like an eco and a sport, or
just that you've got eco and sport, or that you can unlock the real torque potential of the motors, because right now it's softer than what the drivetrain is actually capable of doing. And that'll likely come, maybe not at the first launch of the app, but some iteration of the app would have the ability for experienced drivers to unlock more performance.
Fella 96, I think we did cover this, but he talked about, is a leg apron cover something you have thought about designing?
Yeah. That's the splash guards is what we call it.
Yeah.
But it's basically it's the kayak skirt for the FUV, and it makes a huge difference in the rain.
Great. And
So-
last question, Fella 96. When you manage to design the full doors, we sort of touched on this.
Yeah.
Will you also have to add an AC to control the fog? We never answered the question.
We've actually got a defogger already in the vehicle. Where the AC would be a feature for people who live in hot weather climates with AC. With the full enclosure, and that's definitely on the drawing board. It's also the benefit. One of the benefits of 1X is that we freed up are freeing up a lot of packaging space in the front end that could accommodate more accessories.
Final thoughts or final statements that you'd like to make that you didn't get a chance to go into detail on the 22?
I just really appreciate you guys digging in deep, and I'm stoked that you've built up a community of folks around your channel that are enthusiastic supporters of FUV. Also, like I told you before we started, I was pretty sure you guys were going places, so I'm glad I got to be your first ever CEO guest.
You never forget the first.
Thanks for taking an hour and change out of your Sunday to do the deep dive.
For the love of Mark Frohnmayer and FUV.
Oh, there we
hit
go.
Like,
there we go.
hit subscribe, and hit the notification button.
And share it on social media. Put it out there. Yeah.
Let me ask you, Mark, did you hit the bell?
As soon as this one goes up, I'm going to follow all of these instructions.